while I was unconscious in the ICU, fighting for my life. My daughter sold my house of 35 years and said, "You don't need it anymore." When I woke up and found out what she'd done, I couldn't believe my own child could betray me like this. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Margaret Thompson, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who I could trust in this world. I was wrong. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember because I had just finished watering the daffodils in my front garden. The same garden my late husband Robert and I had planted together 35 years ago when we first bought our little brick house on Maple Street. The daffodils were his favorite. Every spring when they bloomed, I felt like he was saying hello from wherever he'd gone 8 months earlier. I was making my morning coffee when the dizziness hit. Not the gentle kind that makes you sit down for a moment, but the violent, world-spinning kind that sends you crashing to your knees. The last thing I remember was the sound of my favorite mug, the one Jessica had made me in high school pottery class, shattering against the kitchen floor. When I woke up 3 weeks later, everything I thought I knew about my life had shattered too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Jessica first, because understanding her is crucial to understanding how someone could do what she did to her own mother. Jessica Thompson Williams is my only child. My daughter, my pride and joy, or at least, she used to be at 42. She's everything I thought I wanted her to be. Successful married mother to 2 beautiful teenagers. She's been a real estate agent for 15 years, one of the top sellers in our county. She drives a BMW, lives in a house twice the size of mine, and always looks like she stepped out of a magazine. What I didn't know, what she hid so well, was that beneath all that success, Jessica was drowning. According to the nurses, Jessica was a model daughter during those 3 weeks I lay unconscious. She visited every single day, sometimes twice. She brought flowers, always fresh ones, when sit by my bedside reading aloud from my favorite books. She asked detailed questions about my condition, took notes about my medications, and even brought photo albums to show the staff pictures of our happy family. "Your daughter is wonderful," Nurse Carmen told me later. She was so devoted, so concerned. She kept saying she just wanted what was best for you. Jessica played the part perfectly. While I fought for my life, connected to machines that breathed for me and monitored every heartbeat, she was performing the greatest role of her career, the loving, sacrificing daughter who would do anything for her mother. What the nurses didn't see were the phone calls Jessica made from the hospital parking lot. What they didn't know was that she'd already contacted 3 different real estate agents about getting a quick evaluation on my property. What they couldn't have imagined was that while she held my hand and whispered prayers by my bedside, she was calculating exactly how much my house was worth and how quickly she could sell it. You see, Jessica had a problem. Her husband Marcus's construction business was failing. The economy had hit contractors hard, and Marcus had made some poor investments. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage, and the bank was threatening foreclosure. Their perfect life was about to come crashing down, and Jessica couldn't bear the thought of losing face in front of her friends, her clients, her community. But I had something Jessica needed: equity. 35 years worth of it, sitting in my little brick house on Maple Street. The cruel irony is that if Jessica had just asked if she had simply been honest with me, I would have helped her. I would have given her whatever she needed. Robert and I had worked hard our whole lives, saved every penny we could. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. I could have taken out a second mortgage, or sold some of Robert's tools, or a dozen other things that wouldn't have required betraying everything sacred between a mother and daughter. But asking would have meant admitting failure, and Jessica couldn't do that. Instead, she chose a path that I'm still struggling to understand. Even now, 2 years earlier, when Robert was dying, our lawyer, a kind man named Mr. Patterson, had suggested that Jessica and I both have power of attorney over each other's affairs. Just in case, he said. For emergencies. It seemed sensible at the time. Jessica was my only child, and I trusted her completely. She was successful in real estate, understood contracts and legal documents. Who better to handle my affairs, if I ever couldn't? I signed those papers without a second thought, never imagining that I was handing my daughter the legal tools she would later use to destroy my life. Power of attorney is supposed to be about protection, protecting someone who can't protect themselves. It's supposed to be sacred trust, a legal recognition of love and care. It's not supposed to be a license to steal. But that's exactly what Jessica turned it into. While I lay unconscious, Jessica used that power of attorney to access my bank accounts, my financial records, everything. She told the bank that I was permanently incapacitated and that she needed to handle my affairs. She made it sound like I was never going to wake up, never going to come home, never going to need my house. Again, she was so convincing, so professional, so heartbroken about her dying mother that no one questioned her. Why would they? She was the successful real estate agent daughter, tearfully doing her duty by her poor, sick mother. The first thing Jessica did was order an appraisal on my house. She told the appraiser that I needed to move to long-term care and that the family needed to sell quickly to pay for my medical expenses. Another lie, since I had excellent insurance and Medicare that covered everything. The house appraised for $285,000, not a fortune, but enough to solve Jessica's financial problems. Then she started showing it to buyers. Mrs. Patterson, next door, no relation to our lawyer, was the first person Jessica approached. Mrs. Patterson is 78 and has lived next to us for 20 years. She'd brought casseroles when Robert was dying and had checked on me regularly since he'd passed. "Oh, Mrs. Patterson," Jessica said, standing on her front porch with tears in her eyes. "I have such difficult news about Mom. Is she all right, dear? I heard the ambulance that morning. She's not going to be coming home, Mrs. Patterson. The doctors say her brain was without oxygen too long. Even if she wakes up, she'll need full-time care." Mrs. Patterson told me later that Jessica cried real tears during this conversation. She seemed so devastated, Mrs. Patterson said. So I believed her completely. Jessica spun the same story to everyone: the mailman, the grocery store clerk where I'd shopped for decades, my book club friends, even my doctor's receptionist. Poor Jessica, everyone thought. having to deal with her mother's tragic condition all alone. She told them all the same thing. I would never be coming home, and she had to sell the house to pay for my care. Meanwhile, she posted the house on the real estate market as a must-sell quickly property. She priced it $20,000 below market value to ensure a fast sale and told potential buyers that it was an estate sale, technically true. Since she'd convinced everyone I was as good as dead, the house sold in 6 days. 6 days. 35 years of my life sold in less than a week while I lay unconscious, fighting for every breath. While I was still unconscious, Jessica hired a moving company to pack up everything I owned. 35 years of memories, photographs, Robert's tools, my mother's china, my teaching supplies, my books, everything went into boxes and disappeared into a storage unit across town. She was methodical about it. She kept a few sentimental items that she thought I might want, some family photos, a few pieces of jewelry, Robert's wedding ring. The rest she declared unnecessary and either stored or donated. She threw away things that would have broken my heart if I'd known. The card Robert gave me on our first anniversary, the test papers from my favorite students with their sweet thank you notes, the pressed flowers from our honeymoon 43 years ago. To Jessica, these were just clutter. To me, they were irreplaceable pieces of my soul. She even threw away the pottery mug that had shattered the morning I collapsed, the one she'd made me in high school. "It's broken, Mom," she would tell me later when I asked about it. There was no point keeping broken things. By the time the new owners got the keys, it was as if Margaret Thompson had never existed in that house at all. The buyers were a young couple with a baby, thrilled to get such a beautiful home at such a good price. They had no idea they were buying a house stolen from a woman lying unconscious in a hospital bed. Jessica told them I had peacefully decided to move to assisted living, and was so happy to see a young family enjoying the home. Another lie. Another performance. The house sale netted $278,000 after closing costs and Jessica's commission. Yes, she took a commission on selling her own mother's house. That money went into my bank account initially, 'cause legally it was still my house and my sale. But Jessica had power of attorney over my accounts. Within 2 weeks, she had transferred $150,000 to pay off her own mortgage and save her family's house from foreclosure. She moved another $50,000 to pay off Marcus's business debts and credit cards. Another $30,000 went into her children's college funds, my grandchildren's college funds, paid for by stealing their grandmother's home. She left $48,000 in my account, calculating that it would be enough to pay for assisted living for a year or two. In Jessica's mind, this made her generous. She was leaving me something. After all, the remaining money would cover the storage unit fees and what she called incidental expenses, which included a new designer handbag she bought to celebrate solving her family's financial crisis. When I found out about the handbag later, that detail cut deeper than almost anything else. She celebrated stealing my home by buying herself a present. I woke up on a Thursday afternoon in early April. The first thing I saw was Jessica's face hovering over me. And for a moment, I felt such relief. My daughter was there. "Everything would be okay, Mom," she said, and her voice sounded strange, higher than usual. Strained. "Mom, can you hear me?" I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the breathing tube. I managed to whisper, "Jessica?" "Oh, thank God," she said, and she really did seem relieved. I think part of her had been genuinely afraid I might die, even as she was busy selling my life out from under me. The next few days were a blur of doctors and tests and physical therapy. My body was weak, but my mind was sharp. The doctors were amazed by my recovery. Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Martinez said, "You're a miracle. 3 weeks ago, we weren't sure you'd make it. Now look at you talking, thinking clearly, asking for chocolate pudding. I was asking for more than chocolate pudding. I was asking when I could go home." That's when Jessica started acting strange. "Well, Mom," she'd say when I brought up going home, "we need to talk about that. You've been very sick. Maybe we should focus on getting stronger first." "I am getting stronger," I'd insist. "I want to sleep in my own bed, in my own house. I want to see my garden." Jessica would change the subject, or suddenly remember an urgent phone call she had to make, or find some reason to leave the room. This went on for 4 days. 4 days of Jessica deflecting every mention of home, of my house, of my life. I started to get suspicious, but I couldn't imagine what she might be hiding. I trusted her completely. I was such a fool. Nurse Carmen Rodriguez had been working in the ICU for 12 years, and she'd seen every kind of family dynamic imaginable. She'd seen devoted children and neglectful ones, families torn apart by medical crises and families brought together by them. But something about Jessica bothered her, though she couldn't put her finger on it at first. "Your daughter was here every day while you were unconscious," Carmen told me during one of her rounds. "Very devoted. Always asking about your condition, taking notes." "That sounds like Jessica," I said proudly. Carmen hesitated. "She seemed very concerned about your prognosis. Kept asking if you'd be able to live independently when you recovered. Asked a lot of questions about your mental capacity, your ability to make decisions." Something cold settled in my stomach. "What kind of questions?" "Oh, whether you'd be competent to handle your own affairs, whether you'd need guardianship or long-term care. She seemed very worried that you wouldn't be able to take care of yourself." Carmen studied my face. "But looking at you now, Mrs. Thompson, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to go home and live normally. Your recovery has been remarkable." That night, I lay awake, thinking about what Carmen had said. Why would Jessica be so worried about my mental capacity when the doctors were saying I was recovering beautifully? Why was she asking about guardianship? Why wouldn't she talk about me going home? The truth came out through my grandson Tommy, Jessica's 16-year-old son. Tommy is a sweet kid, honest to a fault, a trait that his mother would later curse when she realized what he'd accidentally revealed. Tommy visited me on a Saturday afternoon, bringing homework to work on while he sat with me. He's always been my little study buddy. I used to help him with his math when he was younger, and he still liked having me around when he did schoolwork. "Grandma," he said, looking up from his algebra, "are you sad about selling the house?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "What did you say?" "The house," Tommy repeated, not noticing how I'd gone completely still. "Are you sad about selling it?" "Said you were okay with it, But I thought you might be sad anyway. I loved that house, Tommy. My voice came out as a whisper. Odd house. Odd. And that's when I saw the exact moment Tommy realized he'd said something terrible. His face went white, then red, then white again. Oh no. He whispered, "Oh no, oh no, oh no. Mom didn't tell you yet." "Tell me what, sweetheart?" Tommy started crying. At 16 years old, my grandson sat in that hospital chair and cried like a little boy who'd accidentally broken something precious. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I thought you knew. Mom said she was going to tell you. She said you agreed to it. Tell me what happened, Tommy." Through his tears, the whole story came tumbling out. How his mother had put the house on the market while I was unconscious. How she'd told everyone I was never going to recover, never going to come home. How she'd sold it to pay off their debts and save their house. She said it was the only way. Tommy sobbed. She said you were going to need long-term care anyway, and this way the family could stay together. She said you'd understand when you got better. She said you'd want to help us. I held my grandson while he cried, and I tried not to let him see that I was falling apart inside. This sweet boy had just delivered the most devastating news of my life, and he was heartbroken about it. I couldn't make it worse for him. "It's not your fault, Tommy," I whispered, stroking his hair. "You didn't do anything wrong." But inside, I was screaming. Jessica arrived at the hospital that evening for her usual visit, carrying flowers and wearing the smile I now recognized as her performance mask. She had no idea that Tommy had already shattered her carefully constructed lies. "Hi, Mom," she said brightly. "How are you feeling today? Do you look better?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her and wondered how I had never seen the stranger behind that familiar face. "Jessica," I said quietly, "we need to talk." Something in my tone must have warned her, because her smile flickered. "Of course, Mom. What about my house?" The flowers slipped from Jessica's hands and scattered across the hospital floor. For a moment, she looked exactly like Tommy had when he realized his mistake, a child caught in a lie so big it couldn't be covered up. "Mom, I can explain, can you?" I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded, considering that everything inside me was on fire. "Can you explain how you sold my house while I was unconscious? Can you explain how you told everyone I was dying when the doctors said I would recover? Can you explain how you stole $300,000 from your own mother? I didn't steal anything." Jessica's voice was shrill now. All pretense dropped. "I have power of attorney. Everything I did was legal." "Legal isn't the same thing as right, Jessica. You don't understand." She was pacing now, gesturing wildly. "You don't know what it's been like. Marcus's business failed. We were about to lose everything. The kids' college funds were gone. We were going to end up on the street. So you thought you'd put me on the street instead. That's not. You can't live alone anymore, Mom. Look at what happened. You collapsed. You nearly died. What if it happens again? Then we'll deal with it then. But that was my choice to make, not yours." Jessica stopped pacing and stared at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "You're being selfish," she said, and her voice was cold now. You're an old woman living alone in a house that's too big for you, and you nearly died in it. I did what was best for everyone. You did what was best for you. Fine. Jessica exploded. Yes, I did what was best for my family, my children, your grandchildren. Is that so wrong? Is it wrong to want to keep my family together? It's wrong to destroy your mother to do it. That's when she said the words that I'll never forget. The words that showed me who my daughter really was underneath all the lies and performances. You don't need it anymore, Mom. You can't live alone after this. It's time to accept reality. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. This was my child, my only child, telling me that my life, my home, my independence didn't matter. That she had the right to take it all away because she'd decided I was too old, too sick, too inconvenient to deserve it. Get out, I whispered. Get out of my room, get out, and don't come back. Jessica stood there for a moment, looking like she wanted to say something else. Then she turned and walked out, stepping over the scattered flowers she'd dropped. I didn't see her again for 3 weeks. David Peterson was Robert's best friend and our family lawyer before he retired 5 years ago. He'd been out of town visiting his sister in California when I'd had my medical emergency, which is why he hadn't visited me in the hospital. When he returned and heard what had happened, he came to see me immediately. David is 72 years old, with white hair and kind eyes, and he's been like a second father to Jessica since she was a child, which made what he had to tell me even more painful. Maggie, he said, settling into the hospital chair with a heavy sigh, I heard about Jessica selling your house. Is it true? Every word, I said. And then I told him everything. David listened without interrupting, but I could see the anger building in his face with every detail. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Maggie, he said finally, what Jessica did was elder abuse. It was fraud. Power of attorney doesn't give her the right to sell your home without your knowledge or consent, especially when you are expected to recover. But she says it was legal. Legal and lawful are two different things. Yes. She had the power to access your accounts and make decisions about your care. But using that power to steal your house and spend the money on her own debts? Theft, plain and simple. David pulled out a notebook and started writing. We're going to fight this, Maggie. We're going to get your house back if we can. And if we can't, we're going to make sure Jessica faces the consequences of what she's done. David, she's my daughter. I don't want to destroy her life. David looked at me with the patience of a man who'd spent 40 years practicing law and watching families tear themselves apart. Maggie, Jessica destroyed her own life when she chose to steal from you. She destroyed your relationship when she betrayed your trust. And she destroys other people's lives too if someone doesn't stop her. What happens when her real estate clients trust her with their power of attorney? What happens when her own children get older and she decides she knows what's best for them too? He was right, and I knew it. This wasn't just about me and my house. This was about who Jessica had become and what she might do to others if she got away with it. David might have been retired, but he still had connections throughout the legal community. Within a week, he'd gathered enough evidence to prove that. Jessica had committed multiple crimes. First, there was the fraud. Jessica had told the bank that I was permanently incapacitated when my doctors had been optimistic about my recovery from the beginning. She'd told the house buyers that I had peacefully decided to move to assisted living when I'd never made any such decision. She'd told the moving company that I had authorized them to pack up my belongings when I'd been unconscious the entire time. Second, there was the theft. Jessica had used the money from my house sale to pay her own debts, which was a clear violation of her fiduciary duty as my power of attorney. She was supposed to use my money for my benefit, not hers. Third, there was elder abuse. Jessica had taken advantage of my vulnerable state to steal my home and my life savings. She'd isolated me from friends and neighbors by telling them I was dying. She'd made major life decisions for me without my knowledge or consent. But perhaps most damning of all was what David discovered about the timing. Jessica had started researching my house's value. 2 days after I was admitted to the hospital, while I was still in critical condition, she'd contacted real estate agents before the doctors even knew if I would survive. She'd been planning to sell my house from almost the moment I arrived at the hospital. This wasn't a decision made in crisis or desperation. It was premeditated theft when David's investigation became public knowledge. Jessica's family began to fall apart. Marcus, Jessica's husband, claimed he'd had no idea where the money to save their house had come from. He said Jessica had told him that I had gifted them the money to help with their financial problems. Whether he was telling the truth or just trying to save himself, I'll never know. But he filed for divorce 2 weeks after the investigation began. My grandchildren Ami and his sister Sari devastated. They'd grown up thinking their mother was successful and ethical, a role model they could be proud of. Learning that she was a thief who had stolen from their beloved grandmother shattered their world. Tommy came to see me once more before Jessica's trial began. "Grandma," he said, and he looked so much older than his 16 years. "I'm sorry about what Mom did. I'm sorry I didn't know sooner. I'm sorry I couldn't stop her." "Oh, sweetheart," I said, pulling him into a hug, "this is not your fault. Not any of it." But I knew she was worried about money. I heard her and Dad fighting about it. If I'd paid more attention, maybe Tommy listened to me. Children are not responsible for their parents' crimes. You are not responsible for what your mother chose to do. Are you going to be okay, Grandma? Where are you going to live? That was the question that haunted me every night. Because while David was working to get justice, justice couldn't give me back what I'd really lost. The house was gone. The new owners had already moved in, already started making it their own. They'd painted over the height marks Robert had made on the doorframe, tracking Jessica's growth from age 5 to 15. They'd torn out the garden where Robert and I had planted daffodils every spring for 35 years. They'd renovated the kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals, where Jessica had done her homework at the table, where Robert and I had shared our morning coffee every day for decades. I couldn't ask them to give it back. They were innocent in all this, a young family who'd bought a house in good faith, who'd already invested their own money in making it their home. It would have been wrong to destroy their lives to fix mine, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. The storage unit Jessica had rented contained most of my furniture and belongings. But so many irreplaceable things were gone. Robert's workshop in the garage, with all his handmade shelves and pegboards, had been dismantled and thrown away. My garden, where I'd grown vegetables and flowers for 3 decades, had been bulldozed. The kitchen windowsill where I'd grown herbs, the bathroom where I'd measured my daughter's height every birthday, the bedroom where Robert and I had talked about our dreams and fears every night, all of it was gone. Insurance couldn't replace memories. Money couldn't buy back 35 years of home. Jessica had stolen more than my house. She'd stolen my history. Jessica's trial began 6 months after I woke up in that hospital bed. She'd hired an expensive lawyer with money she'd borrowed from her sister. And her defense was exactly what I'd expected. She'd done everything out of love and concern for me. My client was faced with an impossible situation, her lawyer argued. Her mother was dying, unable to make decisions for herself. The medical expenses were mounting. Mrs. Thompson-Williams had to make difficult choices to protect her mother's interests. It was a good story. It might have even worked, if not for all the evidence David had gathered. The prosecutor, a sharp young woman named Amanda Chen, methodically destroyed Jessica's defense. She showed the court that I'd had excellent insurance that covered all my medical expenses. She proved that Jessica had started planning to sell my house before my doctors even knew if I would survive. She demonstrated that Jessica had used the money for her own debts, not my care. Most damaging of all, she played a recording of a phone call Jessica had made to a real estate agent while I was still in the ICU. My mother is not going to recover, Jessica's voice said clearly through the courtroom speakers. The doctors say she's brain dead. I need to sell her house as quickly as possible to pay for her care. Except I wasn't brain dead. The doctors had never said I was brain dead. Jessica had lied to manipulate a quick sale. When Jessica took the stand in her own defense, oh no, she tried to maintain that everything she'd done was out of love. Oh no, I was trying to protect my mother, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She was so sick, and I was so scared. I just wanted to make sure she'd be taken care of. But when Amanda Chen cross-examined her, Jessica's story fell apart. Mrs. Thompson-Williams, did you tell your mother about your financial problems before she had her medical emergency? No. But did you ask your mother if she would be willing to help with your debts? No, I didn't want to worry her. But you had no problem stealing her house to solve those problems? I didn't steal anything. I was protecting her by lying to real estate agents about her condition, by telling them she was brain dead when she wasn't. I was upset. I misspoke by using the money from her house to pay off your own mortgage. That was to keep the family together, your family, not hers. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Jessica was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution of $278,000. The full amount she'd stolen from me. She was also ordered to perform 500 hours of community service and prohibited from working in real estate for 5 years. As the judge read the sentence, I watched my daughter's face crumble. She looked like a child who couldn't understand why she was being punished for something she thought was justified. I felt no satisfaction in that moment, no sense of justice or victory. I just felt tired and sad and empty. After the sentencing, Jessica's lawyer approached me in the hallway. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, "my client would like to speak with you before she's taken into custody." I almost said no. I wasn't sure I could bear to see her again, to hear more justifications or excuses. But she was still my daughter, and this might be the last chance we'd have to speak for a very long time. Jessica was waiting in a small conference room, her hands shackled, her face streaked with tears. "Mom," she said when she saw me, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Are you?" I asked. "Are you sorry for what you did, or are you sorry you got caught?" "I'm sorry I hurt you. I never meant for it to happen like this." "How did you mean for it to happen, Jessica? How did you think stealing my house was going to end?" She was quiet for a long moment. I thought you'd understand," she said finally. "I thought you'd see that I was trying to help the family. I thought you'd forgive me because I'm your daughter." And there it was, the heart of it all. Jessica had believed that being my daughter gave her the right to take whatever she wanted from me. She'd believed that our relationship was a shield that would protect her from the consequences of her choices. Being my daughter should have made it harder to betray me, I said. "Not easier. I know that now. Do you?" "Do you really? Because even now, even after everything, you're still talking about what you thought I'd do, what you thought I'd understand. You're still making this about what you needed, what you wanted. You're not sorry for what you did to me, Jessica. You're sorry it didn't work out the way you planned." Jessica stared at me, and for the first time in our conversation, she had nothing to say. "I love you," I told her, because it was true, even after everything. "You're my daughter, and I will always love you. But I don't know if I can ever trust you again, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you." I left her there, crying in that small room, and I walked away from the courthouse knowing that my relationship with my only child might be over forever. The restitution money Jessica was ordered to pay me wouldn't come for years, if ever. She had no assets left after the divorce, no way to earn money while in prison. David helped me file claims against her real estate license bond and her professional insurance. But those processes take time. In the meantime, I had to figure out how to rebuild my life from scratch at 68 years old. The first challenge was finding somewhere to live. I'd been staying in an extended stay hotel since leaving the hospital, but that was expensive and temporary. I needed a real home. With David's help, I found a small apartment in a senior living community. It wasn't the independent living facility Jessica had claimed I needed. It was a regular apartment complex that just happened to cater to older adults. I could come and go as I pleased, have visitors whenever I wanted, and live my life on my own terms. It was one bedroom, with a tiny kitchen and a balcony, just big enough for 2 chairs and a small table. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Moving in was heartbreaking. I'd lost so much, not just my house, but all the accumulated possessions of a lifetime. I had to start over with second-hand furniture and garage sale dishes. I had to replace photo albums, books, kitchen gadgets, everything that makes a place feel like home. But there was something liberating about it too. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing everything myself. No compromises, no consideration for what Robert might like or what Jessica might think was practical. Every plate, every lamp, every throw pillow was exactly what I wanted. I hung photos of Robert and me from our honeymoon. Hey, back when we were young and foolish and thought love could conquer anything. One displayed the few pieces of my mother's china that had survived Jessica's purge. I bought new plants for the balcony and promised myself I'd learn to grow things in pots. It wasn't the same as my old life, but it was a beginning. One of the hardest parts of starting over was the loneliness. In my old house, I'd had Mrs. Patterson next door and Mr. Garcia across the street and a whole neighborhood of people who'd known me for decades. I'd had my book club and my church and the coffee shop where everyone knew my name. In my new apartment, I was starting from zero. But people can surprise you. As word spread about what had happened to me and in a small community, word always spreads, people began reaching out. Mrs. Patterson from my old neighborhood drove 20 minutes to bring me a casserole and make sure I was settling in. Members of my book club invited me to keep attending meetings, even though I now lived across town. The women at my church organized a rotating schedule to make sure I had rides to services and social events. But the most unexpected support came from my new neighbors in the apartment complex. There was Eleanor, an 82-year-old former nurse who lived across the hall and immediately appointed herself my unofficial wellness check coordinator. I survived 40 years of hospital politics, she told me. One crooked daughter doesn't scare me. There was Frank, a widower in his 70s who'd lost his wife the same year I lost Robert. He understood the particular loneliness of losing your life partner and starting over alone. We began having coffee together on Sunday mornings, sharing memories of our spouses and figuring out how to build new routines. There was Maria, a 65-year-old retired teacher who'd heard about my situation through the school district grapevine. Teachers stick together, she said simply, and she meant it. She helped me navigate Medicare paperwork, drove me to medical appointments, and became the sister I'd never had. These people didn't owe me anything. They barely knew me. But they saw someone who needed help, and they stepped up without being asked. They became my chosen family. The people who proved that blood isn't always thicker than water. For months after Jessica's sentencing, I wrote letters to her. Pages and pages of everything I wanted to say but couldn't bring myself to mail. I wrote angry letters, full of hurt and betrayal. Jessica, how could you look me in the eye every day in that hospital, knowing what you'd done? How could you hold my hand and pretend to pray for my recovery while you were busy stealing my life? How could you sleep at night? I wrote sad letters, mourning the daughter I thought I knew. I keep thinking about when you were little, how you used to climb into bed with me during thunderstorms. You were so afraid of the dark, and I promised I'd always keep you safe. I never imagined that one day I'd need protection from you. I wrote confused letters, trying to understand what happened to you, Jessica. When did you become someone who could do this? Was it gradual? Or was this person always inside you, waiting for the right circumstances? Did I fail you somehow as a mother? Did I teach you that family was something you could use instead of something you should cherish? I wrote desperate letters, begging for answers. Why didn't you just ask me for help? Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me about your problems? I would have given you anything I could. I would have sold the house myself. If you'd convinced me it was necessary, up. You didn't give me the chance to choose. You just took the choice away from me. But I never sent any of those letters. What was the point? Jessica had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. Oh, my words couldn't change what she'd done or who she'd become. Instead, I kept the letters in a box in my closet, a record of my journey through grief and anger and confusion. Oh, maybe someday I'd throw them away. Maybe someday I'd find peace with the whole situation, but not yet. The hardest part of my new reality was losing my relationship with Tommy and Sarah. They were innocent victims in all this, caught between their love for me and their complicated feelings about their mother. At first, Marcus tried to maintain a relationship between the kids and me. He brought them to visit a few times. Awkward encounters where we all pretended things weren't as broken as they were. But as Jessica's legal troubles became public, as her crimes were reported in the local newspaper and discussed in their schools, it became too painful for everyone involved. The kids were embarrassed and confused. Their friends knew their mother was in prison for stealing from their grandmother. Teachers looked at them with pity. Everywhere they went, they carried the shame of what Jessica had done. Marcus eventually moved the family 2 states away to get away from the gossip and give the kids a fresh start. I understood his decision, but it broke my heart all over again. Tommy called me once after they moved. "Crema," he said, and his voice was shaky. "I'm sorry we left. I'm sorry everything got so messed up." "It's not your fault, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. I miss you. I miss the way things used to be. I miss you too, Tommy, more than you can imagine." Do you think Mom will ever be normal again? Do you think our family will ever be okay? I wanted to give him hope, to tell him that everything would work out, that his mother would serve her time and come out reformed and ready to rebuild their relationship. But I'd learned the hard way that lies, even well-intentioned ones, cause more harm than good. "I don't know, honey," I said. "I hope so. But even if it doesn't work out the way we want, you're going to be okay. You're a good person with a good heart, and that's not going to change because of what your mother did. I love you, Grandma, okay? I love you too, sweetheart. Always." That was 8 months ago. I haven't heard from him since. Recovery isn't linear. It's not a steady progression from pain to acceptance to peace. It's a messy, unpredictable process full of setbacks and small victories and days when you feel like you're starting all over again. Some days I woke up angry, furious at Jessica for what she'd done, at myself for trusting her, at the whole situation for being so unnecessary and cruel. On those days, I'd clean my apartment with violent efficiency, scrubbing away emotions I couldn't process any other way. Some days I woke up sad, grieving not just for my lost house and possessions, but for the daughter I thought I had, for the family relationships that were probably broken forever. On those days, I'd sit on my little balcony and cry, letting myself feel the full weight of what I'd lost. Some days I woke up determined, ready to fight, to rebuild, to prove that Jessica hadn't broken me. On those days, I'd throw myself into activities volunteering at the local literacy center, joining a new book club, taking an art class at the community college, and some days, increasingly often as time passed, I woke up okay. Not happy exactly, but stable, ready to face whatever the day brought without the crushing weight of betrayal and loss. Those okay days taught me something important. I was stronger than I'd thought. Kay survived the worst thing I could imagine, not just the medical emergency. That nearly killed me, but the discovery that my own daughter could betray me so completely. And I was still here, still living, still finding moments of joy and connection. I wasn't the same person I'd been before. That woman was gone, along with her house and her naive trust in family bonds. But the person I was becoming wasn't worse. She was different, harder in some ways, but also more appreciative of genuine kindness. More careful with her trust, but more grateful for the people who earned it. 18 months after my world fell apart, I got a phone call that changed everything. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Amy Rodriguez. You don't know me, but I bought your house on Maple Street." My heart clenched. I'd successfully avoided driving by my old house, but I thought about the young family living there often. I wondered if they were happy, if they'd planted anything in the garden, if they understood what a special place they'd inherited. "Oh," I said, not sure what else to say. "Hello. I hope you don't mind me calling. Your number from David Peterson. I hope." "That's okay. I wanted to talk to you about something, all right? Mrs. Thompson, when we bought your house, we had no idea what had happened. We thought it was just a normal sale, you know? But after we moved in, the neighbors told us the whole story. About how your daughter sold it without your knowledge, while you were in the hospital. We felt terrible. I mean, we fell in love with the house, and we've put a lot of work and money into it, and we have a baby. But it didn't feel right, knowing how it happened. My husband and we've been talking about it for months. I had no idea where this conversation was going. But something in Amy's tone made me think it wasn't going to be another expression of sympathy. "Mrs. Thompson, would you like to come see the house? See what we've done with it?" I almost said no, immediately. The idea of seeing my old home changed and occupied by strangers seemed like emotional torture. But something stopped me. "Why?" I asked. "Because we found something that belongs to you. And because, well, I think you should see what we found." 3 days later, I stood on the front porch of my former home for the first time in almost 2 years. Amy Rodriguez was younger than Jessica, probably in her early 30s, with kind eyes and paint under her fingernails. Her husband Miguel was carrying their toddler, a little boy with dark curls who stared at me with solemn curiosity. "Thank you for coming," Amy said. "I know this must be hard." She led me through the house, and it was both heartbreaking and wonderful to see how they'd changed it. The kitchen had been completely renovated, modern and bright. The living room was painted a cheerful yellow. The back bedroom that had been my sewing room was now a nursery, with a crib and mobile and children's books everywhere but in the backyard. Something made me gasp. The garden was back. Not exactly the way Robert and I had planted it, but unmistakably intentional, lovingly tended. There were vegetables and flowers, herbs and berry bushes. And in the front corner, exactly where they'd always been, a patch of daffodils. When we moved in, Miguel explained, we found bulbs stored in the garage. The neighbor, Lady Mrs. Patterson, she told us they were daffodils that you and your husband planted every year. She helped us figure out where they used to be. I couldn't speak. I just stood there staring at those bright yellow flowers, proof that something beautiful could survive even when everything else was destroyed. That's not all, Amy said softly. Miguel, show her what we found. Miguel led me to the garage, where he moved some tools to reveal a small wooden box tucked into a corner behind the workbench. We found this when we were cleaning out the garage, he said. It was hidden back there, like someone tucked it away for safekeeping. Inside the box were things Jessica's movers had missed. Robert's wedding ring, which I thought had been lost. A bundle of love letters he'd written me during his army service. Photos from our early years together. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, the pottery mug Jessica had made me in high school, cracked but carefully glued back together. We thought you should have these, Amy said. I sat on a lawn chair in the backyard of my former home, holding my husband's letters and looking at the daffodils he'd planted, and I cried. But for the first time in 2 years, they weren't tears of loss and betrayal. They were tears of gratitude. Amy and Miguel had done more than just return my lost treasures. They'd given me something I didn't know I needed: closure. Seeing the house loved and cared for. Seeing the garden renewed. Seeing a young family making happy memories in the rooms where Robert and I had built our life together healed something in me that I hadn't known was still broken. We sat on the back porch, the same porch where Robert and I had shared evening coffee for 35 years, and talked about gardens and babies and the strange ways life connects people who are supposed to be strangers. We've been thinking, Amy said as the afternoon grew late, about whether we should feel guilty for living here. Whether we should have tried to give the house back somehow. No, I said immediately. Don't feel guilty. You've bought this house. In good faith. You've loved it and cared for it. You've made it a home again. That's exactly what it needed. But it was stolen from you. By my daughter, not by you. You're not responsible for her crimes. And honestly, seeing how happy you are here, seeing that little boy playing in the garden, it makes me feel better about losing it, if it had to be sold. I'm glad it went to people who understand what a special place this is. Miguel reached over and squeezed my hand. You're welcome here any time, he said. To see the garden, to visit the daffodils. This was your home for 35 years. That doesn't just disappear. Driving away from the house that evening, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 2 years. Peace. Not complete healing that was still a work in progress, but genuine peace. Jessica had taken my house, but she couldn't take away what it had meant. She'd stolen my possessions, but she couldn't steal my memories. She'd betrayed my trust, but she couldn't destroy my capacity to love and be loved. 2 years and 3 months after Jessica's sentencing, I finally wrote her a letter I was willing to send. Jessica. I've started this letter 100 times over the past 2 years. I've written you pages of anger, confusion, hurt, and questions that I know you can't answer. But I've never sent any. of them because I wasn't ready. I'm not writing to you because I've forgiven you. I'm not sure I ever will, and I'm not sure forgiveness is what either of us needs right now. I'm writing because I want you to understand what you took from me, okay? And what you didn't. You took my house, but you didn't take my ability to make a new home. You took my savings, but you didn't take my capacity to rebuild. You took my trust in you, but you didn't take my ability to trust other people. You thought you were taking care of a problem, your financial crisis, but you created so many more problems. You lost your marriage, your relationship with your children, your career, your freedom. You turned your mother into a stranger and your children into victims of your choices. But maybe the saddest thing you took was our relationship. Not just what we had, but what we could have had. If you'd come to me honestly, if you'd trusted me with your problems, we could have faced them together. I would have helped you. I would have done anything I could to keep my family safe and together. Instead, you chose to see me as an obstacle to overcome rather than a person who loved you. You chose to take what you wanted rather than ask for what you needed. You chose to lie rather than trust. I don't know if you've learned anything from what happened. I don't know if you understand the difference between helping someone and controlling them. I don't know if you're capable of change, but I want you to know that I've learned things too. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I've learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about the people who choose to stand by you when you need them most. I've learned that starting over at 68 is possible, even when it feels impossible. I've learned that you can survive the worst betrayal imaginable and still find reasons to be grateful for your life. I hope someday you'll understand what you did to all of us. I hope someday you'll find a way to make amends that goes beyond just paying back money. I hope someday you'll become the person I thought you were when I signed that power of attorney. But I'm not waiting for that day to live my life. I'm not putting my happiness on hold until you figure out how to be my daughter again. I'm moving forward, with or without you. This might be the last letter I ever write to you. I've said what I needed to say, and now it's up to you to decide what kind of person you want to be when you get out of prison. I hope you choose to be better than the person who stole from her own mother. Not for my sake, but for yours, your mother. Margaret Ty mailed that letter on a Tuesday morning, dropping it in the mailbox outside the post office and walking away without looking back. 3 years after Jessica sold my house, I've built a life I never could have imagined. I volunteer at the Literacy Center 3 days a week, helping adults learn to read. It reminds me why I became a teacher in the first place. That moment when understanding dawns in someone's eyes. When they realize they can do something they never thought possible. I've joined a hiking group for seniors, and we explore trails around the county every weekend. My body is stronger now than it was before my medical emergency. Because I've learned not to take my health for granted, I've started painting something I always wanted to try but never had time for when I was busy maintaining a house and taking care of everyone else's needs. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm getting better. And there's something deeply satisfying about creating something beautiful with my own hands. Eleanor and I have become best friends, partners in crime who organize social events for our apartment. complex, and make sure none of our neighbors are lonely or struggling. Frank and I still have our Sunday morning coffee ritual, though now we're joined by Maria and sometimes by Eleanor too. I've started dating something I never thought I'd do again at my age. His name is George. He's a retired electrician who lost his wife to cancer 3 years ago, and he makes me laugh in ways I'd forgotten were possible. We're taking it slow, figuring out what it means to find love again in your 70s. But it's been a lovely surprise to discover that my heart isn't as broken as I thought. I think about Robert often, but the grief has transformed from something that crushed me to something that connects me to beautiful memories. I tell George stories about my late husband, and he tells me about his late wife. And we honor the people we loved while building something new together. I think about Jessica too, though less often and with less pain. Heard through David that she was released from prison 6 months ago. She's living in a halfway house 2 states away and working as a cashier at a grocery store. Part of me wonders if she's learned anything, if she's trying to rebuild her life into something honorable. Part of me hopes she is, but mostly, I don't think about her at all. I'm too busy living. People often ask me how I survived what Jessica did to me, how I managed to rebuild my life after such a devastating betrayal, how I found the strength to start over at 68 years old. The truth is, I didn't have a choice. When everything you thought you knew about your life disappears overnight, you have 2 options: give up or figure out how to move forward. And I was too stubborn to give up. But more than that, I learned something important about myself and about life. I learned that I was never as dependent on external things as I thought I was. My house was beautiful and full of memories, but it wasn't what made me who I am. My savings gave me security, but they weren't the source of my worth. Even my relationship with Jessica, painful as it is to admit, wasn't the foundation of my happiness. The foundation of my happiness is me. My ability to love and be loved, to find meaning in helping others, to appreciate beauty and friendship, and small moments of joy. Jessica couldn't steal those things, no matter how much she took from me. I also learned that betrayal, even the deepest kind, doesn't have to define you. Yes, what Jessica did changed me. I'm more careful with my trust. Now, more aware of the ways people can hurt each other. But I'm not bitter. I'm not closed off from love and friendship. I refuse to let her crimes turn me into someone hard and suspicious and alone. The people in my life, Noah, Lana and Frank and Maria and George and Amy and Miguel and all the others, who've shown me kindness without expecting anything in return. They've taught me that there are good people in the world. People who help because it's the right thing to do, who love without conditions, who can be trusted with your heart and your vulnerability. Jessica taught me how cruel family can be. But my chosen family has taught me how beautiful it can be too. If I could go back and change what happened, of course I would. I'd want my house back, my possessions, my savings, my naive trust in my daughter. I'd want the family relationships that were destroyed, the innocence that was lost, the simplicity of life before I knew what Jessica was capable of. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is decide how we're going to respond to the hand we're dealt, how we're going to let our experiences shape us. I chose to let mine make me grateful for genuine kindness, appreciative of honest relationships, and determined to live fully no matter what challenges I face. I chose to build a new life rather than mourn the old one forever. I chose to survive, okay? And then to thrive. Now I'm curious about you who have followed my story to the end. Have you ever had someone you trusted completely betray you when you were most vulnerable? How would you handle discovering your own child sold your home while you were fighting for your life? What would you do if you were in my place? Comment below and let me know what city you're reading from, so I can see how far my story has reached. And remember, sometimes the family that matters most isn't the one you're born with, but the one that chooses to stand by you when it counts. Life after betrayal is possible. Life after loss is possible. Life after 68 is possible. I'm living proof.